Change is something we see every day. And we see it in organisations. And we see it go bad. But we also see it go good. And I want to talk about the times it goes good, how to do that, and what it looks like. So today I'm going to be talking about organisational change, and I'm going to be referencing Alistair Mant's systems idea of the frog and the bicycle. Systems is the idea put forward by Alistair Mant that organisations are either made up of one or the other, or a bit of both. The two being a bike or frog. So with a bike, you've got many parts that make up the one, and you can pull whatever out, change it up, maybe even oil it and put it back together. Whereas with a frog, every part is connected in such a way that if you pull one out, the whole thing falls apart. So with this said, what does that mean for change and positive change? So before we go on with that idea, I want to talk about the things that are involved in change, and they are management and leadership. So with management, they have a huge role to play in outputting that change. So management need to have a focus on culture, corporate culture, and they need to have a focus on role delegation and the management roles. So culture is a huge part of organisations. It either makes or breaks a corporation. Culture is the driving force behind any organisation. The way culture is the way the organisation is going to be. So that's why management need to play their part in culture, where they influence it and ground things in it so that it can be authentic when it comes out. Next to that is the idea of role delegation. Role delegation comes out of the idea of Glenn M. Parker's view of an organisation being a team, and there's different team players in that team. So what that means is that management needs to have a grasp on who is in the role and why they're in the role. Because if we look at Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, he says that one of the main things that he saw in his study of what made a good company into a great company was the accurate use of roles. Jim Collins puts it like this: the old saying, people are your greatest asset, is completely wrong, because your greatest asset is the right people. Now, it may be blunt, but it's true. The right people are the right people, and that's where role delegation holds its power. You need to have the right people in those positions, and management needs to be aware of it. With that said, management also need to know their roles. So it comes down to this acronym POLC, so planning, organising, leading and controlling. Planning being your first stage, you strategize and you get your ideas together of how you're going to go about either a bike or a frog system, how you're going to bring change. Next to that is organising, so gathering your resources and putting them forward towards your plan. And then following that is leading. Leading is when you actually bring your staff in on the plan. You put them forward and you encourage them and do what you did in organising with your resources with the staff. You put them towards your planning. Now, the last one, controlling. Controlling is when you look back sometime after and you reflect on how well that was implemented, and you benchmark it and you suggest or bring any alterations to it if needed. Now, with management being talked about, leadership needs to be talked about. And Alistair Mant says that true leadership is about clarity and truth. And while that's true, I think there's more to it. And the New Leader puts it this way. They say that the true leader, the good leader, needs to be emotionally aware. They talk about this study where our brains are an open loop. So our emotions are affected by others, but in a good way, in the sense that we don't have to figure everything out, but we live with a community mindset where when a baby's crying, They look at their mother and they're affirmed, okay, I'm alright. And this goes into the workplace. Leaders need to be knowledgeable of this and using it to be the right benchmark, the right reference point for their employees through change. They need to be looked at in the time and seen stable, seen as encouraging and showing truth and clarity, but through emotion. So with all this said, how do we go about change? And I want to say change is different for a bike and for a frog. Following along the lines of Polk, we can see that organisations need to plan ahead, be aware of the systems that they're working with, plan for those systems, and then continue forward. So, organising, that would look different for a bike and a frog. Organising to bring change for a frog would look like encouraging the culture in change. Whereas with a bike, you would actually create a powerful coalition inside a group of people to bring that change. You would be a little bit more forceful because you could. Next one after that, leading. Leading for a frog would look similar to when you put a piece of wood against a plant to prop it up and correct anything that's wrong and put it towards change. Whereas with a bike, you could actually cut out the bits that are bad, put new bits in. So doing role delegation, you can take employees and put them in a better position for them and take employees out and bring new ones in. Lastly, controlling. Controlling would be looking back and saying, okay, what has happened? Have we done it well? And what can we do? Also, you want to give small wins to a frog, whether you're showing them how well they did together because they're one, they're a frog. Whereas with a bike, you'd probably say to each individual parts, hey, you're doing good at that part, you're doing good at that part. Now, management does a lot, but leadership needs to play a part in this too. So leaders are to be showing themselves as an emotional anchor point, a reference point, and spurring on their bike or frog organisations. With a frog, they need to show each part how they're helping the whole. With a bike, they need to be thanking the parts for the individual assets they play, but also they need to be showing a vision, casting a vision of how efficiency is for each individual development inside there. So with all this said, change is hard and it can be tough, but when done well, it can be very beneficial. Systems, good management and true leadership is what makes up positive change. Thank you.